Line up in the morning and stare at your shoes, like meat for a gaffer to pick and to choose. With a tap on the shoulder, he gives you the sign. You can hump call all day for 2 shillings and 9. I'm telling you, Jack, life's not the same when you spend your day loading that 100-ton.
I don't know, does anyone feel this thing? Or the way of it? It's what would you say, over a stone?
This is before 3-4.
It's not 3 or 4 stone, Christ sake. You said you worked in a docker. What weight do you think it was? It's over a stone anyway, isn't it? Yeah, well over a stone. So you could imagine that thing, and then put about 2 stone of coal on top of it. You can imagine what it's like working for all the days. But it's very pointy, as you can see. The reason being that when you're going to the coal, you're digging the pointy part, like in the garden. If you know you know your garden spade, the way it's like that. Now they worked down, and they were putting this stuff into buckets, or we call them tubs. And the smallest of them would be owned by the port and docks. They held a ton. Now the way it worked was there was a tub in each corner of the hatch. In other words, if this room was a hatch, there would be a tub there, another one there, another one there, another one there, and the 5th one would be on the hook. So that if the crane man was going here, he would put the empty one there, and he'd take up the full one, and the tipper would tip it into the wagon, and he'd come back in with an empty and put it there and take a full. Now, they were called tippers, the men outside. One particular foreman, I think, he must have been a Jew man, he always said canter. Don't know why, but most of them would say, there's a tipper. And the reason he was called a tipper, he just tip up the balk and the bucket turned around.
Sorry about that. You were very quick.
You all right?
You try and get in there.
No, take it easy, buddy. Now, these are all right when you were digging down through the coal, because it had the pointy part for digging down. But when you got to the floor, well, you see, you understand that it's the floor. Now, if you were in a ship, you don't call the floor. It's the ceiling, because that's where it's sealed. So, when you got to the ceiling or you got to the floor, you changed from that thing, because it wasn't much good to you then. First of all, it was too heavy. There was no need for the damn thing. So you got to a square head. It's a pity we don't have one here. It's simply a shovel lighter than this, but square. And that was much handier for, if you were on the floor, it would slide along and put it into the tub. Now, if you were starting the ship, there was going to be us 4, you 3 and me. There's going to be 2 of us on one side, obviously, and 2 of us on the other side. But it wasn't quite as simple as that, because for me now, they call me left-handed, because I'm lifting with my left. So if I'm on this just over here, mind the point, and I'm take a shovelful of coal, actually you throw it into the bucket, yeah. Now let's say it was on that side of the tub, and I'm shoveling. There's nothing there, so what I have to do is turn this way and throw it in like that, which is not very practical. So in order to balance that out, if the 4 of us was running to the ship, I'd shout at me, "What hand are you?" And he would say, "I'd be looking for a right-handed guy," because the right-handed guy would be picking up the shovel with his right hand. That's where the weight would be. And he would be digging, and he'd be throwing it into the bucket, and I'd be over that side with my left and throwing it in like that. So if you had 2 left-handed men, it would be ridiculous, because this poor bugger would be working what they called across his chest, and he wouldn't last a day, So say you walk down and you get down to the bottom. Now there was different types of coal, because that's what these are for. I'll try and be as brief as I can. There was things called peas and beans. They were peas and beans, they would say. The the reason for that is there were small little tiny things that looked like pins and beans. They were easy to work. You didn't even have to kick or shovel, you just scooped them up. But the hardest one of the lot was for the railways. That came from Wales, Swansea. Welsh steam coal. And can you imagine these guys? You fill that up, and with this stuff, heavy, big lumps of shit on it, and you'd be lifting at least 4 stone, and you're doing that all day. It was very, very hard work, and I don't want to rob anyone else's thunder, but the railways had the worst of the lot, and the gas company, I suppose. Outside of apart from the Welsh steam coal, you had coke. Coke was, anyone know what coke is, yeah? Yeah. So coke was, you try and dig coke, it was nearly impossible. And a lot of the times, the fellas were picking it with their hands and throwing it to tubs. As a result, you can imagine what your hands was like, you know. But, and the Welsh steam, and then they had, what I explained last time, if there was anyone here last time, was pitch blocks. And pitch blocks, when you were working down for the railway, the problem with them was that it came from tar, as you know, and when it got dusty and all the rest of it, they tried to start, to be dust and be sticking to your face, etc. The only thing wrong with that was, to try and stop it, fellas put stuff, women's stockings over their face and stuff like that, to try and prevent this stuff from getting on your face. The only problem was that when the sun came out, then this melted. It melted onto your face, and then when you tried to take the stocking back off, your skin came off with it. And they were the kind of things. Now, as I say, I don't want to rob anyone else's thing, but they were the kind of cargoes, you know. We were talking about the laughing bits and the joking things and the smuggling, but it was a horrible place as well. Like, for example, you all know what caustic soda is.
Oh, yeah.
Now, can you imagine working caustic soda in those days? It's in bags, plastic bags, and you're putting it in onto a tray or whatever. It goes up over your head, and the wind blows the dust off, goes down your neck, goes onto your hands. You sweat. Can you imagine? Caustic soda. And the bosses felt very, very sorry about that. So what they did was, they bought gauntlets, and they said, that'll sort it out. There was only one problem with that. The stuff went down into the gauntlets, and then it was even worse again. But things like that, I don't want to go on, but the fact is that apart from the funny side of it, there was, he's telling me to get on with the gear.
He's telling me to go on.
Yeah. No, the only reason I'm telling you that is that you hear a lot of things about the funny side. And it was a funny place by times, it had to be, otherwise you go shouting crazy. Okay, a hook. Cargo hook, it's not a very good specimen, but it is in the general shape of what it's used for. Basically, this one would be used for the like of boxes or timber. You have to think about timber, like if you see timber now on a truck at the moment, you'd see it's in a big bundle and it's baled up and it's a bundle of timber. But in those days, it was all loose timber, planks. And as bad as we thought it was, people, the women loaded these boats. Women in Finland loaded these ships, and in Russia, mostly in Archangel, they loaded them ships in their bare feet. And you know, as bad as we thought, but to get back to the hook, if you're going to bend down all the time and keep picking up a board and another board and another board, it's going to do your back no good. So kind of an exercise in ergonomics. The Edward hook will be for timber will be slightly longer, hence you were able to do that and just pick it up, and then you put it onto, I suppose the best way to describe it to the average layman is a skid, what you'd see, you know, where forklift trucks go under. We called it a podger. So you put that down and you pick one board up and you build it up, and then you put the ropes around it and out it went. But that's what that was used for. We had That's another version of it, by the way. Just the same thing, for doing the very same thing. But now, as I say, it would be slightly longer than that. But the docker wouldn't go around with this in his hand all the time. You know, so usually when they were trying to, or if you weren't using it, you just turn it back and put it like that. Now the reason for that is that won't hurt you. And you could sit down and you could do whatever you liked with it. And it won't hurt you. Now, if you were working all the time with it, you just leave it there. And you know, you walk away, and then when you wanted it, you do that. That's what that was used for. Did anyone have a bag? Did I see a bag?
Married to one.
What?
Married to one.
Yeah. Do you have a thing of a bag hook? Do you have a slide?
No, not
No?
picture, no.
Right. Right, when you were working bags, especially Hessian or jute bags, whatever, what they did was they wouldn't allow you, obviously, your cocoa beans or stuff like that, which were very valuable. They wouldn't allow you to use that thing, because if you put that into a bag and then you pull, what happens is it rips the bag, the stuff falls out, and if it gets wet, it's destroyed. So what they did was they came up with a hook. I've got to describe it to you now. It has little needles, if you like.
Like a hairbrush.
Yeah, a little bit like a hairbrush, you know, the things on the hairbrush. And the reason for that was that when you put the thing in, the little needles went into the bag, but it didn't, it distributed the weight more, and you didn't destroy the cargo. We had...
We had one.
Yeah,
last
the
time.
gear man got sacked.
Oh, I thought you said you had one, no?
It didn't
No.
tear the leg.
There is one in the group.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing was too, you know, working these timber boats and stuff like that. You see, these be coming from the Baltic or whatever, and they'd be full of ice and snow and everything else, you know. So that's where you really did want that, because can you imagine trying to lift that with your hand? Now I'm at a loss now because they don't have the things for me to explain. Unless you think I'm some kind of a magician.
What can we do about the health and safety?
Right. That's as best I could do for you, sorry.
There's one for to drive it, one for to guide, four to fill it in the darkness inside. And you'll work like a miner, shoveling coal, scraping the floor deep down in the hold. I'm telling you, Jack, life's not the same when you spend your day loading that 100